Hey there, welcome back. Today I have something different in mind, which means that I'll be venturing throughout and deciphering a rather cryptic cave/establishment, Liar's Retreat. Basically, I'll be walking the viewer through the cave and explaining what actually went on there, taking into consideration the fractured mess it is currently in. This cave mainly served as a bar for the local populace of filthy bandits, the most appalling bandits that the Reach has probably seen. It's located in the northwestern part of the Reach, directly next to the Stormcloak camp of the Reach. The entrance is very secluded and unnoticeable at first sight, but let's be honest, who'd go for a stroll in the Reach with all the numerous forsworn attacks and raids that cursed the region? The bar was primarily run by a notably strong Breton by the name of Rod, who secured himself a mediocre yet gut-wrenching nickname known as Long Hammer. And the reasoning behind this nickname will hopefully be clarified by the end of the video. So, let's get started. Upon entering, the player stumbles upon a skirmish between Falmer shamans, Falmer warriors, and insignificant bandits. But what's obvious from the start is that, even though the remaining bandits are surrounded by their massacred friends, they're still putting on a decently skilled ass-kicking, no matter how futile the fight might have seemed at that point. So moments after watching the fight unravel, they succumb to the same fate as their bandit friends. At first glance, the architecture looks promising. The main hall is nicely structured with the bar facing the entrance symmetrically. I mean, it's definitely something pleasant to look at. A shame it was filled with savage marauders. Closer inspecting the whole mess reveals a full pile of bandits that are just scattered across the room, with the assistant bartender meeting the same fate. This main hall transitions into another hallway or into a back room, which is presumably for cooking and meal prepping. The hallway consists of two personalized bedrooms and one shared bedroom with multiple beds. There's one bedroom on the far right that seems barricaded, and upon closer inspection is locked and inaudible mumbling can be heard from beyond the door. Once the player manages to open the door, it's exactly what we've predicted. I mean, it's a bandit cowering in fear and hoping the Falmer won't pick up his scent. No notable loot can be found in the following two rooms besides that one either. Moving on, we still haven't delved into the matter of why there's a huge gaping hole in the far east end of the hallway, and we'll get into that shortly. But what interests me the most is the fact that a full hideout of bandits lived and coexisted with feral Falmer elves. Well, not literally side by side, but wall by wall. If only Rod the Longhammer knew what dwelled beyond these innocent stone walls of his. The Falmer managed to find a weak spot in the wall and bust through, completely catching the bandits with their knickers in a bunch. I mean, the poor fellas didn't even have time to sober up, I assume. One thing we don't notice amongst the bodies is a bandit chief, which is odd considering bandits heavily rely on one, and we'll get back to that later as well. So, finishing off most of the skulkers and pathetic Falmer abominations, their own abode deeper in the ruins await us. So what the stone walls didn't tell us is that it covered an unknown Dwemer ruin of sorts, that of course came with a bunch of feral freaks that call those cold and steamy ruins their home. Exploring this extended cave further reveals numerous cages and pens in which the Falmer are keeping a couple of bandits prisoner. Some bandits might manage to escape, but will ultimately be met with the same ending as the others. Further venturing down through their lair, we notice a room that roughly resembles a square. This room contains a torn down Dwemer door and machinery all around, with an altar in the middle and a Dwemer enclosure to the right of the room. The Dwemer enclosure houses a couple of bloodied bones, which is understandable, considering the circumstances, and a little ramp that leads up to a Falmer hut. Now, the first thing that we witness when entering this district of theirs is a man with barkeeper clothes impaled on top of an altar by a Falmer sword. which is strange due to the nature of no men or mer being allowed that far into a Falmer lair. So whilst going over to loot him, we swiftly found out this is Rad, the infamous barkeeper known as Longhammer. Now, this isn't helpful at all. This has only arisen more and more potential questions that are linked to his whereabouts and how he initially ended up getting drilled into that altar. But the most probable theory and outcome that defines this situation is that Rad Longhammer launched a lone offensive into the lair himself, whilst his cohorts were dealing with the threat at hand back at the bar. But why would someone perform such a foolishly fearless act knowing that your colleagues were getting slaughtered up top? Or rather, why wouldn't someone in his position do that? Hear me out though, there are some factors to take in here. From what we've gathered, his nickname is that he's fond of hammers, and that's exactly why he has a unique warhammer that grants the user the ability to swing it 30% faster. Now pair that with his motivation not to lose his only source of income, and you've got a dedicated warrior on your hands. Rad most likely managed to duel himself through to the last fraction of the Falmer layer, and this must have doubtlessly infuriated the warmonger, or Shadowmaster of the Falmer tribe, forcing them to viciously nail him to that altar. His unique warhammer was set next to him, giving you the option to acquire it for further usage or sell it for financial gain. One thing we still know for sure is that the bandit chief is mysteriously missing, which instills even more confusion on top of our already scrambled opinion about what happened here. Immediately after returning to the main hall, it appears that you can hear someone entering from the walkway above, which is even more baffling considering the Peachy Falmer uprise slaughtered every single soul in that sanctuary. But further listening to what the group of people that just entered the hideout have to say, we can assume that one of them is the bandit chief that returned from a raid, solely because there was no trace of him or her whilst we were exploring the sanctuary and looting lifeless bandits. Once the chief is in plain sight, he/she starts shouting across to where Rad the Longhammer would usually bartend, only to stumble upon a desolated battlefield. If the chief manages to spot the player, full-on battle ensues, and we all know how that would end for them, considering we're the last Dragonborn. Otherwise, if the player manages to sneak besides them, infectious panicking befalls them, which prompts them to search the bar for the responsible party at hand. All in all, the morality of this case is left up to the player. Whether one would think that the bandits actually deserved it or not isn't really important, but the sheer bravery of our Breton bartender Rad must have been displayed in a moment of despair and desperation, which should at least be commended. Ultimately, both parties got unlucky. Our little hunched up feral elves put an end to another mindless group of bandits, and the last Dragonborn got rid of another batch of Falmer filth. I guess it's a win-win. Thanks for watching another one of my videos. These projects take me quite a bit of time to craft, so please consider watching other videos or at least giving the video a like if you truly enjoyed it. Xith signing off. Cheers.